Hello, my name is Markantonatou Vasiliki. I am a marine ecologist at the Aristotle University in Greece. The evaluation of management effectiveness is an organized, structured and compacted way to integrate and synthesize information essential to protected areas management. In simple words, it is the assessment of how well a protected area is being managed, expressing primarily the extent to which management is achieving the protected area's goals and objectives. Monitoring of management effectiveness is a simple and robust tool enabling managers to explore the current status of management at all levels and aspects, to identify and address possible management gaps, issues neglected, management failures or inadequacies in order to improve their management strategy, prioritize their future management actions, and face new challenges that are revealed throughout this process. It also helps managers to set new targets directly linked to future management actions in a specific time frame. Finally, through this learning process, we increase our understanding and knowledge about management and conservation aspects overall. The evaluation of management effectiveness is generally achieved through the assessment of a set of criteria against agreed objectives or standards that describe the various aspects of management. These criteria are represented by measurable performance indicators, examples of which are shown here. Performance indicators examine the various management aspects, giving a present snapshot of the current condition. Indicators can also provide information regarding the progress of management effectiveness in time based on past assessments. In this case, we examine the trends of indicators to better understand the management performance in a given period of time in order to improve effectiveness of management actions. Indicators are usually accompanied by clarifying questions that assist in their understanding and rating, as shown in this example of scorecard. Indicators can be assessed quantitative, for instance by setting a percentage of how much of an indicator performance has been achieved, or qualitative through rating using colors or graphics such as happy or sad faces that scale the current state as favorable or unfavorable, good, bad, unknown, etc. Indicators can be broken down to more specific indicators in order to describe and explore more in-depth management performance based on the needs of its protected area. Or they can be classified in high or low priority to monitor, putting more weight on some aspects rather than others, based on the importance and need of the objectives that a specific indicator represents. Therefore, at the end, indicators allow, with a transparent process, the identification, documentation, justification, and planning changes to the management scheme of protected areas, providing a holistic feedback in time and space for management effectiveness. Protecting the biodiversity and ecosystems, like monitoring the health status of species and habitats, although of primary importance for protected areas, they are not the only objective that has to be reached. There are also other socio-economic and governance factors that are critical for the effective achievement of the goals and targets in any protected area. For instance, a clear regulatory framework that establishes a protected area and its boundaries. A functional management board, legally endorsed with defined responsibilities. An updated management plan that sets clear targets for actions in a specific long and short-term time frame to be implemented and objectives to be reached, or the impact of a protected area in the local community. These aspects are also important. Without these components, a protected area is just a paper park that is usually unable to meet its conservation objectives. Here you can see an indicative list of indicators with various management aspects that we need to monitor and evaluate in a protected area. There are 4 main sections: the existing legal framework and management of the protected area, description of pressures operating in the protected area, features of interest present in the protected area, which are usually biotic and abiotic components of ecosystems, and communication and outreach activities conducted by the protected area. For example, to describe the promotion of conservation values in outreach activities for the general public, we have to measure the number of outreach activities and if there is an education plan, and also the necessary tools and facilities to support this type of action. For instance, visitor centers, informative signs, leaflets. The assessment can be compiled by a review team composed by the Protected Areas Management Board and staff, experts and scientists, stakeholders and users. Most frequently, however, the review team is restricted to managers. For conducting the assessment, initially we need to identify the objectives of the protected area and consolidate all the relevant background and monitoring data, including biophysical, socioeconomic and governance-related information about the protected area. Feedback from monitoring activities, assessment reports and reviews conducted for the protected area is of high importance in this case to provide the required evidence and quantitative information for the assessment. Interviews with stakeholders may also be conducted to examine the level of communication, participation, or other issues in the protected area related to uses and conflicts. Other sources of information may come from national or regional institutions that are responsible for monitoring water quality, or the port authorities, for example, that record the number of tourist arrivals, or the Coast Guard that has information on fishing license and landings. There are several monitoring protocols to collect specific information for each target and indicator. Some examples you see here. Usually, we adopt a specific monitoring protocol that provides us with the basic information to characterize the status of an activity or an ecological feature. Monitoring protocols should be standardized in order to have reference points when we make the assessment. For example, a pressure is high or low, or a conservation status of a habitat is favorable or bad. When a monitoring protocol is adopted, it should be applied periodically, and we should avoid to change it so that results throughout the years are comparable. Information from monitoring can be further analyzed to provide more accurate feedback or even predict a future condition, but this requires high scientific expertise and technical skills. Although monitoring using high technological tools and methods provides more accurate and better quality data, in most cases there are time and budget constraints. Also, monitoring information is important to correspond not only within the protected area, but also outside its boundaries, in the wider surrounding area, because pressures are allocated or benefits flow sometimes outside the conservation area. Coming back to the evaluation of management effectiveness process, developing a database to house all this information that we have collected is important for management in the long term and considerably assists in the review process. After data is collected, the scorecards for the evaluation of indicators can be compiled. Through this process, the identification of management success and failures in achieving the targets is followed by linking them with new goals and actions, considering the time and effort constraints. An action like mitigating or prohibiting an activity that threatens a species, for example, like fishing or hunting, could be placed relevantly quickly. However, the effects of this action, meaning the recovery of the population of the species, could take longer to be noticed. Results, however, of the assessment should be communicated and discussed with scientists to ask for advice and with stakeholders in order to make common decisions. Management or action plans should be framed ideally in collaboration with stakeholders, while specific timeframes should be set to achieve the targets. New indicators can also be selected to monitor the new management aspects revealed by the assessment. The assessment is a periodic process and ideally should be performed at least on an annual basis. In any case, management evaluation is a dynamic process that provides important insights and guides our management decisions. Therefore, it is an adaptive process that assists managers to adapt their strategies and succeed their conservation targets. The more participatory and transparent the process is, the better chances we have for more effective and efficient management. Here on the right side of the slide, you can see an assessment conducted in 2015, applying the analytical methodology proposed by Tempesta and Otero for 5 marine protected areas in the Mediterranean. The assessment was conducted by a marine scientist that stayed in each protected area for a period of time, was involved in several monitoring activities, and was in direct contact with the management board and staff. Additional information was retrieved from review documents, reports, but also interviews with managers and stakeholders for the assessment of each indicator. Results were compared to a less structured approach through questionnaires that were conducted for 12 additional marine protected areas in the Mediterranean that highlighted the issues faced at that period in marine conservation management. Both approaches showed similar challenges faced in Mediterranean marine protected areas. However, the analytic assessment offered a better insight in understanding these issues and in providing examples on how some protected areas have overcome these barriers. Therefore, management effectiveness in reality not only highlighted the problems, but also showed possible solutions based on good practices from other MPAs. Of course, since then, all the marine protected areas that you see here have significantly improved their strategies and indicators ratings. The most important issue highlighted in this study was the limited budget that is continuously decreasing in the Mediterranean marine protected areas. Inadequate financial resources has a significant domino effect to all other activities, causing a high risk of failure for the protected area to fulfill its mission and objectives. Monitoring activities, surveillance and maintenance capacity, and engagement events become limited. Some MPAs, however, were able to overcome this issue and retrieve additional funds from the promotion of local, certified products produced within the protected area, the establishment of a fee for users and visitors, participation in research projects, private donors, and conduction of a periodic cost-benefit analysis. Proper patrolling and surveillance for the protected area is another important issue. Marine protected area rangers and staff usually have no authority to impose fines in violators, although there are some exceptions in France. Therefore, usually for patrolling, Coast Guard is also involved under a legal agreement with the MPA. However, the expenses for fuels and salaries, along with the fact that in small local communities residents know each other and there is a clear tolerance with violators, are serious challenges. Zakynthos MPA in Greece has overcome this issue by including on-board staff from the MPA during the Coast Guard patrolling. The relationships, resolution of conflicts and collaboration between the protected areas and stakeholders or between stakeholders is also an issue. Involving stakeholders through active participatory procedures that may have a voice on decisions and not just being informed on decisions increases the management capacity, making it more democratic and transparent. Conflict resolution due to the various interests from users is not an easy case. In Tavolara Marine Protected Area in Sardinia, for example, there have been numerous meetings, workshops and consultations to increase stakeholders' knowledge on the various management aspects, while there is constant face-to-face interaction of the protected area with the stakeholders. This has increased trust and collaboration with the management board and slowly has bridged the gap for creating a common consensus for conservation. In another marine protected area in Port-Cros in France, a series of multiple meetings and focus groups with stakeholders from land and sea were put in place for a series of years in order to build altogether a management plan with common goals that would bring balance between conservation and sustainability of local communities.